FPL Game Week 38 Transfer Plans. We are here. It is the final week of the FPL season. So today I'm going to take you through what I plan on doing with my team going into the final game week. I've got just one free transfer, having used two last week, but there are a few options I could go down. Nice 1 week punt on the final day of the season. We've also got quite a few benching headaches with a strong bench lineup this week and a few injury doubts as well. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 1,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here as well. And game week 38, we're here. The final transfer plans of the season. Not much future planning to be done here. We are only looking at what we're going to do with our teams for one final week. 37 weeks are in the bag. Well, 36.5. We've got half a game week still to go, with the double still taking place in game week 37. I'm recording at halftime of Manchester United versus Arsenal at the moment. It is currently 1-0 to Arsenal, and I have double Arsenal defense on my bench boost. So fingers crossed that does hold. But looking at game week 38 at the moment, going with a few benching decisions. So let's discuss those. In goal at the moment, I've got Petrovic over Vicario. Spurs defensively have not been great, particularly going away from home. I do think Petrovic at home to Bournemouth is probably the slightly better pick. Let's wait until later in the week when maybe we get clean sheet odds, but I'm pretty confident that it'll be Petrovic that I go with in goal. Now, in defense, I also have a big benching decisions. Dan Burn away at Brentford is almost certain to be last on my bench this week, but it leaves Pedro Porro, Gvardiol, Ben White, and Gabriel. Double Arsenal defense at home to Everton, Gvardiol at home to West Ham, and Pedro Porro away, but against Sheffield United. At time of recording, it is Pedro Porro who is the one sat on my bench, second on my bench as my first sort of defender sub. Now, he could end up coming in. He could start over one of the Arsenal defenders. I'm almost certain that Gvardiol is going to start for me, having just scored twice so far in game week 37. But there is a chance that I go with Porro over either White, over either Gabriel, just so that I have one Chelsea, one City, one Arsenal, and one Spurs. Now, Arsenal will have a really high clean sheet odd this week, but Pedro Porro did score in the game so far in game week 37 against Burnley. So that's why I'm contemplating starting him. Now, it is at the moment Porro on the bench. Moving up into the midfield. So basically, let's look at it as a front eight. Foden, Son, Palmer, Jackson, and Haaland all pretty nailed to start for me this week. To be honest, so is Isaac. The only thing about Isaac is that he was apparently ill, which is why he was taken off early in the Newcastle game so far in game week 37. So let's keep an eye on that. But if he's available, then he's almost certainly going to start for me. That leaves Anthony Gordon and Bruno Fernandes as being the weak link. Now, we are expecting Bruno Fernandes to be back for the Newcastle game midweek. But of course, if he's not in that, it will be a pretty easy either benching or sell for him going into game week 37. But I do have one free transfer, and there's no point in me rolling a transfer this week. And that seventh attacker outside of Foden, Son, Palmer, Jackson, Isaac, and Haaland is the slot I plan on using it. If one of my defenders gets benched, I could use a transfer there, but I don't think I will, given that I've got Porro and even Dan Burn on the bench. If Petrovic got benched, then I've got Vicario to come in. So not too worried about final day rotation for a lot of my players. So I am planning on using my transfer just on that midfield spot. So Gordon and Fernandes are the two players that could be sold. One of them will sit first on my bench, and the other one is likely to be sold going into game week 37. So looking at who potentially could come in, there are big gaps in my team, potentially in an Arsenal attacker. And of course, I have no Liverpool. We haven't massively wanted to own Liverpool that much recently, but it is Klopp's last game. It is Wolves at home on the final day, and there are definitely points that could be had there as well. Now, the simple and most likely transfer that I do this week will just be selling either Fernandes or Gordon to bring in an Arsenal attacker in either Saka or Havertz. Now, just to explain the arrows on this graphic, I can sell Fernandes to either Saka or Havertz. Of course, I could go down to Havertz, or I've got enough money in the bank to go from Fernandes to Bukayo Saka, but I don't have enough money in the bank to go Gordon up to Saka. So I could just do Gordon to Havertz, leave Fernandes as the player on my bench. Now, I do think Havertz is probably the player I will want to take that 1 week punt on the final day. Saka does have penalties. Saka has probably been a better long-term historical pick, but Havertz is likely to be playing up front at home to Everton in game week 38, and it just feels like a better 1 week punt. He's up front. The positioning is great. He's so involved in what Arsenal are doing at the moment. It's just whether I sell Fernandes for him or I sell Gordon for him. If Fernandes is likely to be back available in game week 38, I will probably sell Gordon for him and keep Fernandes as my first sub away at Brighton, because I do have Isak, so I do have a little bit of Newcastle cover. But if Fernandes is likely to be out, then it's an easy sell of Fernandes to Havertz, keep Gordon as my first sub, and hope that Havertz is better than Saka this week. Now, the other thing that I could do is a little bit more exciting, and it revolves around Mo Salah. Of course, it is Klopp's last game. There were rumours of Salah potentially leaving over the summer, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Now, the only issue is, to get Salah, I would have to take a -4 this week. I can't do Fernandes up to Salah with just my one free transfer. I basically cannot sell Gordon to Salah. I have nowhere near enough money, right? So it would have to be Fernandes out up to Mo Salah. I'm massively short in terms of money, and that's basically the only player I'd consider selling to free up that money is Isak up front away at Brentford. Now, if Isak scores a couple of goals against Manchester United midweek, then I might reconsider and not have this even as a possibility going into this week. But I'm not going to sell Son away at Sheffield United, and I'm not going to sell Haaland, and none of the other players will get me enough money to do it. So in terms of the forward replacement, I'd be left with just 4.8 million in the bank. And there are two forwards that I could buy. It's either going to be Chris Wood of Nottingham Forest away at Burnley, or more likely it would be Adebayo of Luton Town at home to Fulham on the final day. He's been really good for them when he's been, got a run of starts. He scored last game out as well, and I think it's a decent fixture at home to Fulham. Now, just because I buy Adebayo doesn't mean I definitely play him. I would, of course, have Anthony Gordon on my bench. So that Fernandes to Salah move would mean I'd either have to start Adebayo or I'd start Gordon. I think I'd more likely start Adebayo at home to Fulham on the final day. In theory, Luton are not down, but they have to overturn a 12-goal deficit on the final day against Nottingham Forest, which seems very, very unlikely. But they do need goals. It's their final game in the Premier League, most likely. So I probably would play Adebayo in this scenario. Now, do I think that Salah and Adebayo is worth 4 points more over Isak and Kai Havertz? I think probably not. I think the chances are that you're not going to get that 4-point hit back. Now, I think it's not as far away from it as maybe I first thought going into game week 38. And actually, if Salah does something against Aston Villa on Monday night, I might be forced to it a little bit. But I'd say it's about a 20% chance I go for the -4 and about a 80% chance I just bring in a Arsenal midfielder. So just to sort of flow that back, basically two options for me this week. Either I do Bruno Fernandes or Gordon to Kai Havertz, most likely over going for Bukayo Saka. Feels like Saka would just be spending the money for the sake of it when Havertz is playing up front. Be interested to see what they do with Havertz's positioning and his price next year. Most likely will be a forward and probably upwards of 8.5 million if he's going to continue to start in the positioning he is for that Arsenal team. The only other thing that I could do is the Isak down to Adebayo and Bruno Fernandes to Mo Salah move for a -4 and just bench Anthony Gordon this week. I don't massively have a preference between the two at the moment, but I probably am favouring the Kai Havertz move as of now. Again, let's see how Newcastle get on midweek. Let's see how Manchester United and Bruno Fernandes does midweek, whether he comes back in. Let's see how Mo Salah does on Monday night before I fully lock that in. And of course, going into the deadline, often we get some team news in Game Week 38, given all the matches kick off at the same time, which could force my hand one of the two ways, although I don't see Havertz, Saka, Salah, any of them being benched in Game Week 38. The only thing now is just the benching decisions. At the moment, it's Porro on the bench and then the captaincy as well. Most likely to fall on Erling Haaland, given that West Ham have shipped a lot of chances recently. If I fancy something a little bit different, Palmer or Foden, both at home on the final day, could be good. Son going away to Sheffield United, maybe not given the Spurs performances at the moment. So Haaland is captain at the moment, Palmer vice captain, Foden also in with a shout with vice captaincy as well. It basically comes down, do I want Salah for a hit or do I want Havertz for Game Week 38? That is all. No future planning. Not much more to talk about. Leave any questions you have, whether you're chasing mini leagues, chasing rank, what to do with your team going into Game Week 38, or even if you've got chips left to play on the final day. That would definitely be fun, but I don't played all of mine, so just a simple game week for me. Thank you all so much for watching. Drop any questions you have in the comment section down below. 1,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here, and I'll be back again very soon.